Welcome to the Shower Epiphanies podcast, where we explore your hidden thoughts and desires, revealing your greatest drop-the-soap moments. The need to have closure in any given situation is sheer human nature. And when it comes to romantic relationships, this desire skyrockets. Has your previously failed relationship left you in immense pain? It's not uncommon for people to shy away from a new relationship after their first one fails miserably. The fear of the unknown makes them hide in a shell to prevent any future heartbreak. Relatable? Despite wanting to love and be loved, you can't take the plunge if your mind and heart are still locked somewhere in the past. Maybe you aren't aware of the power of releasing the past, or perhaps you don't know how to do it. Art Costello in his online course teaches the art of moving on from bad places to happier, more stable ones. This course can change your life for good, helping you beat all kinds of negativity on the road to eternal bliss. Sign up now before the gloominess gets the better of you at expectationacademy.com. Now here's your host, Art Costello.
Dave Hollis is husband to Rachel, father to Jackson, Sawyer, Ford, and beautiful Noah, and CEO of the Hollis Company. After a 17-year run at Disney, he left his role as president of the theatrical distribution for Walt Disney Studio. Dave looks to take his experiences as global theatrical sales head for Disney, Pixar, Marvel, and Lucasfilms to the expansion plans in the next exciting phase of Hollis Company, focusing on media, live events, and merchandise. Of course, Dave drives a '69 Ford Bronco and intimately enjoys his family dog, Jeffrey. Dave, welcome to Shower Epiphanies podcast. It's an honor to have you on here. I can't say how grateful I am for you taking the time to be with us today.
I'm so glad to be here. And we're like neighbors, so it feels neighborly at the very least for me to be here. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. Could you kind of just go over your story, how it all began for you? Even go back to high school before Pepperdine and what kind of kid you were and where you got your inspiration. And
right on. Yeah, I grew up in Southern California, little town, San Juan Capistrano, halfway between San Diego and LA. I was the tall, skinny kid. I was the kid who was an achiever. I've learned through a lot of the work I've been doing in personal development that I very much was someone who was trying to gain the affection of my parents or friends by performing or achieving. And so, man, I was the guy that got good grades. I was the kid who looked to try and get a trophy for soccer or baseball. I tried to do as many things as I could, as well as I possibly could, with the hope to, make it into college. Went to Pepperdine University, just up the road, still on the beach in Malibu there. Had a great experience. And right out of school, even before I left school, I started a career in the entertainment business. I was interning first between my junior and senior years at Pepperdine at the 20th Century Fox Company, and ultimately ended up getting my first job out of college at Fox. Spent a couple years there working in television, transitioned to an agency where I was working with talent, most of them also in television, segued into doing some marketing, and ultimately got a phone call one day, a recruiter about working at the Walt Disney Company. And so I started what then was the beginning of a 17-year journey inside of the Walt Disney Company, where for the first 10 or so years, I worked in packaged media, DVDs, and then Blu-rays. And in the last 7 years, I worked in the theatrical business, putting really, really great movies into movie theaters. So that's my kind of like school and professional journey. You mentioned at the top, I am husband to an amazing human. Her name is Rachel Hollis. She's an author. She's a speaker. She's a coach and a teacher. She created a company right around the time that we got married that had started as an event planning business that turned into a blog that became a media company called Chic Media. That about a year ago, we started seriously having a conversation about, in order to scale it, we probably needed to think seriously about a thing that we toyed with for years, which was working together. And so 6 months ago, we moved our family from Los Angeles. I left my job at Disney, and we moved to Dripping Springs, where we are neighbors. And we started doing our work together in something that we now call the Hollis Company, which is a company that exists to put tools in the hands of people that if they were to use them, hopefully will have an effect in a positive way on their life.
Boy, what a great story. I mean, living your dream. Is it your dream?
Absolutely. I came out of an environment where the job I had was the proverbial dream, the thing that everyone on the outside would say was the dream job. I was working for the last 7 or so years at Disney as the head of sales on our theatrical business, movies in theaters, and that was Marvel, Lucas, Pixar, Disney, and Disney Animation. So from Star Wars to Avengers to Frozen to you name it, big movies, putting them into theaters. It was, from the outside looking in, a dream job. But challenge, as it were, is it didn't, because of how strong those brands are, how strong the team I was working with was, the strength of just Disney as a company, it didn't require the fullness of my potential to do well in that job. And in the absence of having to use my full potential, it turned into not a dream job. And so the pursuit of doing this thing with my wife has been to put myself into environments where I have not yet figured out how to do the thing that it is we're trying to do, so that in the discomfort or uncertainty of that, I might grow. There's a huge connection between growth and fulfillment, and I am on a pursuit to be as fulfilled as possible, while at the same time chasing impact, the hope that we can use the gifts that we've been given to help other humans reach a higher level of themselves at the same time.
And that really is, when you talk about not being fulfilled, what most people couldn't make any sense of that, because they wouldn't understand. You had a team that was doing everything and it was just great and all that kind of movement in your life. But when it gets to be your inner self, there's a lot that is connected to expectations, because I believe that expectations are the seed from which we grow. Everything we do is predicated on an expectation. I challenge people all the time. Tell me one thing that you do that is not seeded in expectation. And I have yet to have anyone be able to tell me one thing that they do, because everything is preceded with it. I also believe that our epiphanies are a direct link to our expectations. They're the first step to our expectations. Did you have epiphanies about where you were going to go with this? And people sometimes mistake epiphanies for these grandiose boom in your head things that happen, but really epiphanies can come in small increments and move you in certain ways.
I now can identify the boom moment, though it felt like a thing, but not as big as I now have attached value to it in retrospect. But I have these now 4 kids. At the time I had 3. We adopted our daughter almost 2 years ago, but a little more than 2 years ago, my 3 boys and I are in the spa at our house. We are sitting in what for us was a nightly or every few nights activity of, you can ask me any question and I will, to the extent that it doesn't veer into inappropriate, give you an honest answer. And my kids would, for the most part, ask the questions about gross, ridiculous, dumb stuff, because they were 8, 7, and 4. Like at the time, it's exactly what you might expect. And so my 7-year-old at the time asks this question, "Hey, Dad, what are you most afraid of in your life?" And that question, it's innocent. He's looking for tarantulas or snakes or the things that a 7 or 8-year-old kid might be looking for. And out of my mouth fell, not living up to my potential. And it was jarring. It was the epiphany in that moment that I was making decisions that had me feeling a little bit like a sellout of sorts, because I was taking the benefit of a nice paying job, the benefit of the cachet that came with being the head of distribution at the biggest media company on earth, and taking it in exchange for pushing myself into places that might actually fully use my potential, acted as leverage, acted as a catalyst, because I didn't like the idea of modeling for my 3 boys that you should settle for unfulfillment if you can pay your mortgage, that you should settle for not being challenged if the outside world and their expectations are exceeded by the way you live your life. You got to live your life for you, and you got to do something that uses everything that is inside of you.
Yeah, that's very in line with what I preach, because when our kids really do mirror what we do, they follow in our footsteps. They take our lead. And it's really critical that parents don't settle, but they do it all the time. I mean, as you've seen in the Rise movement, lots and lots of people that have come through the movement who are just stuck in that same spot all the time and don't know how to get out of it, and don't know how to do it, to take the next step. How did you take the next step? Because what separates you from everybody, is taking action, and you started to change.
Well, I'd love to say I just decided that I would go do all of these great things right away, but that was, of course, not the case. It took slowly and consistently becoming a less ideal version of myself until it reached a really serious conversation with my wife about whether or not I was going to live my life or have my life live me. And I was, in the way that I think I had probably dealt with stuff that was challenging for me for most of my life, I was pushing it off and trying to mute it by taking long runs, putting on headphones, playing video games, and drinking too much. And that made me not the father that my kids deserved, or the husband that my wife deserved. And it happened to serendipitously hit a tipping point in my relationship with my wife right around the same time that her book, Girl Wash Your Face, was about to come out. She'd been really active in investing in personal development. She'd been really active in reaching every day for a better version of herself. That pursuit had her growing in a way that was, in contrast, just direct opposition to my having each day become a little less cool, less great, less inspired version of myself. So we sat down after, bizarrely, we came out of a vacation where it just did not go well. And we had a hard conversation about the trajectory of our individual lives, that she knew she was going to continue to grow every single day. It was a thing that she valued more than almost anything else. And that if I didn't take an active choice in also wanting to grow every single day, that in 3 months, we'd be a little further apart because she'd have grown and I wouldn't have. And then in 6 months, we might not be going on as regular date nights. In 12 months, we might not be having kind of intimacy that we like as regularly as we want to. And in 2 years, we might not be married. And that was the leverage. That, holy goodness, what are you talking about? There's a chance that if I don't really take this seriously and take massive action, that I could jeopardize the future of my life with my wife and kids.
Anything that shakes you at your roots like that is going to either make you or break you.
Yeah.
And that's so many couples, it breaks them. They don't do, the husband doesn't want to do the work, or the wife doesn't want to do the work. Do you think that your experiences in all the different, because I know that you've been in research and publicity and talent management and all that, people who I found get so well-rounded are able to transition from their thought process, transitions much better than people who are stuck in one place for so long. And do you think that that helped you in actually growing, or was it something different that?
I think it helps, but I think the biggest help was becoming comfortable to dig into why I did the things that I did in my life, why I was motivated or not, why I had a certain mindset or not, why I reacted the way that I did to the things that I reacted to, so that in understanding the why behind my actions, I could get in front of the choices that didn't serve me. I could get in front of the times when I wasn't going to show up as well. And so I had to first get through a stigma that therapy was bad, or was some indictment on me being broken or weak. I had to get past the stigma that personal development was for people that weren't wired right, that only someone who if someone like was going to get help, it was from the way my brain was wired from an early age, an indictment on being good. Mm-hmm. And so once I was able to just throw that garbage, those were lies. And I don't know how, I do now understand how they became they were just a part of the society I grew up in and the way that I was raised and everything else. That being discarded allowed me to really invest in sitting on a couch with a stranger in therapy and digging into stuff, going to personal development conferences, reading books for the first time. And in that, I was able to understand that I'd grown up for the most part with a fixed mindset. I really thought that I was bestowed a certain number of fixed traits, that those were the things that I could use. And if I used them and got to the top of what those things were, then there was a ceiling. It was done. I think embraced a growth mindset in a way that has just completely changed the way I think about what's possible for my life and what's possible for my relationships. And that's been a huge difference. I've come to understand why I've interacted with people the way that I've interacted with them. And in understanding that, you can really think differently about things that are happening in your unconscious, that are happening as a part of habit, and show up in a way that actually fuels and serves you instead of a way that gets in your own way.
When you were a kid, and I'm talking about little, were you come from a stable background?
Yeah.
Your parents?
Good parents, loving parents, still married parents. They raised me. We were raised in the church. We got, good grades, always there. Like, it was great upbringing. Honestly, when I think about the why did I have a fixed mindset? It's hard to go back and pinpoint individual things that happened during my life, but it just was a part of who I was.
I think a lot of it is that era in time. What you were told, you're going to go work for the same company for 20 years, 30 years and get the gold watch and all that. And, you didn't share your personal story with anybody. You kept it to yourself, and you kept the skeletons in the closet and all those kind of things. And then when I think in the 80s, 90s, we started to break out of that, when personal development really started coming into the forefront. One of the things for me, I fell apart when I lost my wife of 38 years to ovarian cancer. And I started drinking, hadn't been a big drinker ever in my life, and started acting like a jerk at 60 years old. I was 60 years old. But for me, when I was younger, my parents, no expectations. They just didn't, no guidance, no anything with their kids. They just existed. I had probably the biggest abandonment issue that I had to overcome. But I went in the Marine Corps and got the structure and the discipline that I had never had in my life. And it really changed my life. And that was the catalyst for me. Went to Vietnam. We'll talk about that story another time. But yeah, I tried to adopt a little Vietnamese girl that was in an orphanage. And I was 18 years old Marine, and the Marine Corps wouldn't let me bring her back. And we lost her in the Tet Offensive. I paid for her schooling and everything. And
wow.
So anyway, these major events happen in our lives and move us. But in your case, it wasn't a major event. It was actually a progression over time that you had a realization or epiphany, and your expectations changed. And I find that really, really interesting, because a lot of people, when they have to do the kind of work that you're talking about, they give up and they quit. And you didn't. And where it's led you is really, really incredible, what's happening with the Hollis Company and the growth that it's going through. I know that Rachel talks about wanting to be bigger than Tony Robbins. My prediction, and you can put this down on paper, she will be bigger, better in every facet. She's incredible. Incredible.
Thank you.
Yep. And we're blessed to have somebody like that is so willing to help so many people. And that's a beautiful thing. I want to get away from a little bit of this, but I want to know about your 69 Bronco.
Ha! The Incredible Hulk?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So what's interesting is, part of the timing of my conversation with my kid in the spa, Rachel's growing into this personal development human, I'm having the season of unfulfillment. also is taking place as I am crossing this bridge from my 30s to my 40s. I'm 43 years old now, but right around the time that I am turning 40, I am having the just most classic midlife crisis that happens to coincide also with that year at the Walt Disney Company, us setting a record for the biggest box office year in the history of the business, topped off by Star Wars The Force Awakens in December. And the way that bonuses work over at the company, they happen right there at the last couple weeks of December. And if it wasn't just like serendipitous, Star Wars opens to a record number of box office dollars on the same day they give us our bonus. I'm having a meltdown. And what is the thing you do while you're having a meltdown and you get your bonus on Star Wars weekend? You start to build a 69 Ford Bronco. Now, it's a thing of beauty. It is wonderful, but it was also the longest process that I have ever taken on. And I thought it was going to cost one thing. It's like maybe building a house from scratch, I'm going to guess. It did not cost what I thought it would. I'm glad that you like it. It's great. But were I to do it over, I think I'd buy a used Subaru because it would have been way less heartburn.
You actually did the physical rebuilding of it? Did you have it redone?
Here's what I did. I bought a Bronco in Nevada for $700 American.
That's a good deal.
Good deal. It was just absolutely a wreck. And then I sent it to a group of humans who professionally restore cars. And then piece by piece, they built this thing back to its now glory. But I thought it was going to be, like 6 months. It'll be fine. It was about 2 years worth of time. Literally, I bought it and built it while I thought I was still going to be working forever at the Walt Disney Company. We made this decision to move. I met it in Dripping Springs the week before the moving van got here with my kids.
Oh, wow.
Has anyone ever inspired you to discover a happier, healthier, and more fulfilled you? It is a magical experience, isn't it? Inspiration is indeed very powerful, yet it's often undermined. It can lift you from the ground to the sky in no time. Have you ever thought about returning the favor by inspiring the people around you? If you don't think you have it in you, we have good news for you. Art Costello's online course has everything you need to learn to supercharge yourself and shape your character into a powerful personality. Get ready to discover your strengths and unleash the creativity within. Don't believe it? Check it out yourself by signing up for this life-changing course at expectationacademy.com. That's expectationacademy.com.
I love old cars. And also I'd like to ask you about that's near and dear to my heart. I see that you're also involved with the Austin Angels.
I am. So we have our now 4 children. We adopted the last of our 4, but that adoption was about a 5-year journey that took us through a really crazy roller coaster of emotions, of systems, of different ways that you can bring kids into your family. We started in international adoption. We were going to adopt through Ethiopia. A couple at our church had themselves adopted, and so we thought we would go down that path. For a little more than a year and a half, we were in a program that was going to have us meeting a child and bringing one back from Ethiopia to be in our family. And then the program closed down. There was bad stuff happening with human trafficking, to be totally honest, inside of Ethiopia that made that thing not a thing. And so we had to pivot into what was next. And next for us was asking where there was need. And there happened to be need in the county of Los Angeles, where there is a serious foster care crisis that's happening on the everyday. And they had a program that you could enter into that was about fostering to adopt. And so we have, in addition to the 4 kids that we have, been foster parents to 4 kids as well. And that experience was transformative in a lot of ways. Some of the willingness to jump into uncertainty was born in embracing the uncertainty of our foster care experience during the 2016 year. And unfortunately, the brokenness of that system left us in one of the situations thinking we were adopting a pair of twins that we'd taken home from the hospital at 5 days old, only to find out a few months in that there were some biological people of the twins involved in trying to take custody. And so we ended up having them with us and then not with us. And that little fuse for us that I think will burn forever to try and be supportive of and involved in charities that help support foster care, whether it's like Austin Angels does, coming around both the kids who are in care, but also the families who feel called into be foster parents. We always want to be involved. So we met Susan Ramirez, who's their CEO, have become friends with she and her husband, Chris, and have been involved for the last few years and love the work that they're doing. And the work that, man, there's plenty of organizations that are doing great work for foster. And if you are a person who feels called into being a foster parent, having community like the kind of community that Austin Angels affords the families is a huge difference maker to being able to traverse the brokenness that exists inside of the system, the tragedy that it's built on top of.
It is broken, that's for sure. The system is broken.
Yeah.
One of my dreams has always been to have a piece of land somewhere and build a facility where I would take every child that is unwanted.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I mean, I just love to do that. So that's one of my on the back burner dreams at 72 years old, but yeah. I'll keep going, striving for it.
I love it.
So one of the things that was coming into my head, kind of an epiphany that I was having, is that when you going through all this, you have a tremendous amount of faith. And we see our expectations in two lenses, either faith or fear. Of course, fear always stops, but faith isn't always in a religious faith. It is for me, and I make an assumption that it is for you. But for some people, it's not. And faith can be in a coach and a counselor, can be in Dave Hollis, can be in Rachel Hollis, can be in Art Costello. It can be in any of us. But as long as you have that faith to know in the end that everything is going to work out just the way it is, because faith is believing in the unbelievable.
Yeah.
And when you do that, and you have a tremendous amount of faith, because it's over and over and over, I see and hear you saying, where other people would have quit, you have the faith to keep going and keep doing, which is the other key. Doing is, people talk about things all the time. When I speak at high schools and middle schools, I always tell the kids, go become a doer. Go make doo-doo all over the earth.
Yeah. My wife has said this so many times, and I don't want to steal her line, but it's one that I think we live by. And, again, some of the product of some of the harder seasons of our life are this thing. And that is, you have to ask yourself, is this happening to me or is this happening for me? And if you can adopt a perspective of the thing that you're going through as for you and appreciate it with some gratitude, even as it's hard, it'll change the way that you think about or have to deal with that question of faith or not faith. So it's happening anyway. So if you can change the perspective that you have on the why, see the good that can come from it, and choose to push your way through it even on the days that it's hard. There's a whole separate line of talk on doing the things that you don't necessarily want to do. The difference between good and great people is the great people do the hard things even on the days they don't want to do them. Trying to do a lot of really ambitious, audacious work. To do that, we've got to keep our health in order. We got to manage a crazy schedule. Like, getting up and going to the gym on an every single day basis is a thing that we commit to do. There's plenty of days where I wake up and I have no interest at 5 a.m. in going to the gym, but I do it anyway, because if I let this body of mine go sideways, I can't be the kind of dad my kids deserve. I can't be the kind of husband my wife deserves, and I can't lead the team in the way that they need.
Yeah, it always goes back to taking care of yourself before you can take care of somebody else. You always have to. Not only spiritually and mentally, but physically, and do that. I know that you're in the midst of publishing a book, writing a book.
I am.
Can we talk about that?
Of course we can. My inspiration, my wife, wrote something that was brave in its bold transparency. She decided to be really honest about things that she'd struggled with in her life, with a little bit of observation on how, in having deconstructed some lies that she believed that held her back, she was able to become a better version of herself. And the more that I've sat with the experience of watching how people have responded to her book and my own journey from having believed a bunch of things that held me back to now in this new world, having dismissed those things as being ridiculous or lies, the opportunity to try and write a version of what she wrote and Girl Wash Your Face is where I'm headed, whether it's tentatively Dude Wash Your Face, but it could be Dude Get Out of Your Way, whatever it ends up being. It's the same kind of idea, this idea that there are things that we as men have believed over the course of time that have kept us from being the best versions of ourselves. And if we were to see the truth that makes those lies not believable, we can become and do more things.
You answered one of my questions that I had. Was it going to be geared towards men? Because it's really, really needed. It's filling a need.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, as much as I'm writing it and, the language I use in it is, hey guy, hey dude, hey man, I also hope that if there's women who are interested in understanding the perspective that their man may have or the kind of things that they might be thinking that are blocking them from getting to the better version of themselves as a husband or father, that they'll also be interested in reading it as well. Obviously, I'm immersed in a community because of my wife that has more women than men. So trust that we're going to be selling it as available to all.
Yeah. Well, anytime a woman can gain perspective on how a man thinks, I think she's ahead of the game.
Yeah. That's real.
It's a problem.
That's real.
Not only for men, but for women too. So,
Yeah.
Works both ways. I know you had Gary Chapman on your podcast.
It was amazing.
Yeah. Isn't that, the 5 love languages are just, mine is service. That's my love language, is service. And it has ruled my life. I've always been to service to others. So, and to my family and all that.
The interesting thing is things like that conversation, the 5 love languages, even the idea, the revelation that children have love languages when they are young was just a mind blower for me. I grew up thinking that things like that were hooey. I just dismissed them as being ridiculous. And if there's a role that I can play in being an advocate to the skeptic, to embrace the practical application of something that is not that complicated, but is universally true, it will transform the way that men are able to connect with their wives, or that fathers are able to connect with their children. I mentioned this on the strange morning show called the Start Day Morning Show, 8 a.m. Central. Hello. But I was mentioning today that I have in one of my children a child who needs a lot of attention. And I'd seen that need for attention as being, to be honest, annoying. I was like, gosh, man, why do you need so much attention? And then I have this interview with Dr. Chapman, and I have this epiphany that my kid is not interested in attention. My kid is interested in love, and his love language is quality time. And I sat in his room last night and let him read 2 chapters of a book to me. And 2 nights ago, before I heard Dr. Chapman explain this to me, I would have perceived his need for me to sit there while he read as, more? We just threw the football together. We were just before that doing a run together. And I didn't, because I said, you know what? I'm going to love on this kid. And if sitting here, connecting with him without my phone, letting him read to me, lets him get love the way he's hoping to have it delivered to him, man, rad. But that epiphany happened 1 day ago in my life. I'm 43. It happened 1 day ago. I've been a father for 11 years. It happened 1 day ago, right? That resource has existed, by the way, for me as a father for 11 years. I just never paid attention to it, didn't know it existed. So now if I can do anything in helping other people who are interested in knowing why the heck I can't connect with my wife or why the heck I can't connect with my kids, understand that these tools exist, man, I want to do it.
Knowledge is golden. For me, a big part of it is learning how to expect. One of the things that I'm trying to do, I'm actually creating a comic book now to teach preschoolers and middle schoolers, or little preschoolers and grammar school kids, teach them how to expect. Because if you learn how to expect and to manage your expectations, when people say don't have any expectations, my blood cringes. I mean, in my veins, because it's impossible not to expect. It's just flat out impossible not to. So what has always made sense to me is manage your expectations. And really, that's what expectation therapy is based on, is managing your expectations. It teaches people. But I want to teach children that, because my life, when I was 9 years old, I was pretty much feeling abandoned. And I used to go to this top of this hill and lay on my back and have a conversation with God and ask what was going to become of me. And I heard a voice deep down inside of me that just said, just be faithful and do. And it became the whole catalyst for my whole life. I just want to do, and I want to help people and all that. And I believe it with all my heart and soul. And it has made such a difference, because no matter what obstacle has come before me, Vietnam, the loss of my wife, 30 some years of owning a business that just drove me nuts. All those things, I always realized after she passed away, I was out at the ranch in Ripon, and my kids came and said, Dad, you promised Mom you weren't going to do this, because I was drinking and being a jerk and everything else. 2:00 in the morning, I got up and went out on my front lawn and laid on my back again. And I had that conversation with God, and I heard this come out of my body. And it said, I've given you all the tools. Just get up and do it.
That's good. Good.
And I did. And that's when I started writing Expectation Therapy. And it just evolved out of that. You're so right about perspective and how we think about it. But so many people have these ideas, but they don't listen to them. They don't listen to their inner self. They don't listen and take action. They're scared. They live in fear.
I'll say this, because when you say expectation therapy, what's interesting is I think the reason that I did not move as quickly to what is now the fullest use of my passion and scariness that actually produces all the growth that I'm looking for is the want for staying in line with the expectations of others, right? So the opinions of other people, their expectations on living my life in a way that makes sense for them. And I think for a lot of people, they're living their life in a way that makes sense for those people, usually ends up being one of the biggest things that keeps them from chasing the passions of their life.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And so if I can say anything 6 months removed from my experience of telling an industry, telling a bunch of people I worked with who were amazing, telling a lot of people who just did not understand what the heck has Dave lost his mind, he's leaving. I was so worried about their opinion of what I was doing. And the headline is, sorry to break this to you and your ego, listener, people aren't thinking about you. People aren't worried about you. They just aren't. And as much as I've stayed connected to some of the crew that I worked with for those 17 years, no one's really spending time pining over a decision I made that does not affect them at all any longer. The sooner you can realize that chasing the passion, the thing that's thumping inside of your heart, the potential that God's put in your body, whatever it might be, even and as it doesn't make sense to other people, pushing aside their expectations for you so that you can live up to the expectation you set for yourself, the sooner you're going to find happiness.
Exactly. And that's what expectation therapy is based on. It actually comes out of a formula I learned in physics, and I just converted it into a behavioral model. But it's basically identify, clarify, and solidify with a written plan. That's expectation therapy.
That's great. That's great.
But you're right. In my book, I write about what I call collective diminished expectations. And that is how advertisers, governments, churches, schools, all control our expectations. I mean, we have the fear of loss. We have, if you don't tithe, you're going to not go to heaven. I can go through a whole litany of things like that. You hit the nail on the head with it. What really matters is what your core expectations are and what you expect of yourself and how you move on that and how you move forward.
Yeah.
it's just huge in your life. So
that's it.
When people tell me that expectations don't matter, other people's expectations don't matter. And that's what most Shakespeare and all the people that wrote these negative quotes about expectations, that's what they were dwelling on. When you shift your thought into positive expectations and what they can do for you, your life does change.
Sure.
I'm living proof of it. You're living proof of it.
100%. Totally and completely agree.
Well, Dave, we're nearing the end of our time together.
Thank you, Art, for having me. It's been so nice to chat. I'm glad that we finally got this on the calendar. Thank you for being so patient with my crazy schedule.
No, that's fine, Dave. I mean, I know how busy you are, and I value people's time. But we live in the same little town.
Yes, we do.
which is really another whole story. I want to thank you, and I want my listeners to really, I think there were some powerful notes that they should have taken during this conversation about changing their lives. What one thing would you like to leave my audience with today?
Well, I do think that we as individuals have the ability to control the way that we perceive the world. That if you can stay really grounded in a posture of gratitude, that you can create the positivity that you're hoping for in your day. I tend to wrap our morning show all the time with this reminder that whether you think you're going to have a good day or a bad day, you're right. So why not just choose to have a good day?
Okay. Those are some powerful words. Thank you, Dave Hollis. And I look forward to doing this again soon, meeting you, and we'll go have a cup of coffee and dripping some time. And I want to check out that old Bronco that you got.
Sounds good, Art. Have a great day. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. This will wrap it up for this segment of Expect for Shower Epiphanies. And thank Dave Hollis, and go to his website, go to all of his upcoming books and everything that's going to be coming out, and you will learn many, many things. Thank you, fans.
Don't know which direction you want your life to take? Are you sinking deep down into the pit of uncertainties day by day? So, what's the secret to leading a happy, satisfied life? It's taking matters into your own hands. But what if the matters in question are a total blur? Art Costello's Expectation Academy course aims to tell you exactly how you can get some clarity in your life. This course can be your savior on your journey to reinventing yourself. While you certainly can't plan your whole future ahead, you can definitely control twists and turns your life takes. So what are you waiting for? Sign up for this course now at expectationacademy.com. Get a chance to broaden your horizons and add meaning to your life. That's expectationacademy.com. Thanks for listening to the show. Drop us your comments and questions with what you want answered on the show. You can subscribe on iTunes and Binge Network. You can also get more information on the website, expectationtherapy.com.